Hi everyone, here I am again, day 59 of lockdown, and I still need a haircut. But I have a great interview for you guys today. But before we start, I think it's fair to say that anyone can learn to fly and become a pilot. But there are pilots, and then there are pilots. Learning to fly is pretty straightforward. Learning to be a great pilot it takes time, experience, and natural ability, which is why I'm really excited about this show, because I'm going to be talking to someone who pretty much does what I am planning to do every year and has been doing it for over 30 years. And what is more amazing than is that a lot of the time he does it in a different plane each time, and often in a planes that are not really in the best shape. So he's flown over 9,000 hours over 36 years and made over 100 long distance oceanic crossings, landing on every continent except Antarctica. His many adventures have been published in his book, Ferry Pilot, 9 Lives over the North Atlantic. There is no better person to talk to about long distance flying than an international ferry pilot. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome ferry pilot and author Kerry McCauley to the show. Hi, Kerry. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hi, Travis. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Can you start by telling my viewers that don't know, what is a ferry pilot?
Oh, certainly. Basically, an international ferry pilot is someone who flies planes all over the world to customers for various reasons. Basically, if somebody needs a small plane flown over a big ocean and they're not stupid enough to do it themselves, I'm the guy they call.
Great. Wow, that sounds very important. I definitely know a lot of people who aren't stupid enough to do that. So yeah, but yeah, no. Now that that's clarified, I want to talk to you about my trip. But I'm actually also interested in your life and experience. Can you tell me what made you become a ferry pilot?
Well, one of my first jobs in aviation was in the Army National Guard. I was an old Huey crew chief, and one of my fellow crew chiefs was telling me one day about he just got back from South Africa delivering a Cherokee there. And I was intrigued to have him tell me more. I've never heard about a ferry pilot, and he told me all about it. And that sounded like the coolest job in the world to me. I mean, taking small airplanes and flying them all over the world, what could be cooler than that? So I made it my mission right there to become a ferry pilot. And that was actually even before I had a license. So got my license, built up my hours, and got a job as a ferry pilot.
Wow, that sounds really cool. The cat's come back. Wow, so I mean, yeah, that sounds really cool. So going straight into as soon as you get your license, going straight becoming a ferry pilot, that sounds really cool. But also, I mean, obviously it can be quite dangerous. Can you tell me about some of the close calls you might have experienced?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I started my first ferry flight was in 1990, back before GPS. So I have 8 crossings just like Lindbergh with nothing but a compass.
Wow.
And back then it was pretty dangerous. It's still dangerous, but in the 90s we were losing about 3 pilots a year over the North Atlantic. So serious stuff. But I've had just a ton of stuff happen to me. I was struck by lightning in a 206 off the 300 miles off the coast of Portugal. I lost an engine in a Mooney at 19,000 feet while penetrating a line of thunderstorms over the U.S. I was lost over Africa. Well, not lost. I was just temporarily really sure where I was over Africa. Had an alternator go out over the Sahara. Had to fly 8.5 hours from Morocco to the Ivory Coast by flashlight. And I had a ferry system malfunction right in the middle of the Atlantic in between Canada and Paris, and had to spend another 8.5 hours or so manually pressurizing my fuel system by blowing in a tube. So yeah, stuff happens when you're hanging it out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that now GPS is available, it seems like it'll be so much easier. I mean, still dangerous, and but of course, so much easier. And I hope none of this stuff ever happens to me. I don't want any things really to fail. That'd be a bit of a disaster. But I mean, without spoiling a book for people, can you tell me about the stories involving the Cessna 310 and the Aerostar?
Oh, sure. The 310, the 310 is one of the planes that I probably should have said no to. But see, I have this medical condition. It's called can't say no itis. And you could just about talk me into just about anything. So now that we got hired to ferry a 310 from Cairo, Egypt to back to the States to be overhauled. And this plane was originally a present from the Shah of Iran to Anwar Sadat way back in the day. So kind of a famous history, but it really didn't have much time on it when the new owner bought it. And when I went to pick it up, it was a piece of junk. And my boss happened to be with me on that trip. The two of us spent a week getting it ready to fly. And every night we'd go back to the hotel room going, we should go home. This is stupid. The plane was just a wreck.
Yeah.
But we gave it a shot and somehow managed to get it back to the United States. And it was definitely falling apart around our ears the whole way. I mean, the transponder didn't work the whole trip. It burned a lot of oil. Half the radios didn't work. Engine hub started leaking. I mean, that was a stupid one, but hey.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so then what happened with the Aerostar as well?
Well, the Aerostar, I had a couple of things on that. First of all, it was the coolest plane, one of the coolest planes I've ever flown. I mean, the Piper Aerostar is just a hot rod. It's the fastest piston twin ever manufactured.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and I was hired to fly it from Arizona to Cyprus.
Okay.
And funny thing, as a ferry pilot, often you're tasked to fly planes that not only have you never flown before, you've never even heard of it before. And I'd never even heard of the plane. And stopped by, and they basically just tossed me the keys, said, fly this to the other side of the planet. I'm like, cool, I can do that. First night over the Rockies, I was cutting in between a couple of thunderstorms, and I got into some serious St. Elmo's fire. Inside the cockpit, fireworks were shooting off the compass on the instrument, on the glare shield. Tesla fire was weaving snakes of it all over the windshield, and the props were spitting out fire about 1.5 feet. That was kind of scary. Thought I was this is after I'd been hit by lightning once, so I was definitely didn't want that to happen again. So I got the heck out of there. And then that whole trip was amazing. I got to spend about an hour buzzing up and down the coast of Greenland, which is, I highly recommend if you ever get a chance to do that. And I think that's on where you're headed to Narsas right there. It's the most beautiful place in the world to fly. Okay. So if you get a little extra time, do a little sightseeing. And then coming out of Zurich, trying to get over the Alps, I picked up some pretty serious ice. And it was a near thing. I had to get up to 19,000 feet to clear the mountains to descend down into the Mediterranean. And even though the plane had no ice, it had boots, hot props, windshield, I think the tail iced up, and it was getting pretty sloppy there toward the end, and I almost didn't make it. Maybe I didn't make it. Your readers will have to find out. Maybe I got killed. I won't spoil it.
Well, I hope my mum doesn't watch this video then.
Oh yeah, she shouldn't do that. This is bad. I mean, it was sunny the whole way, a beautiful trip. You won't have any problems, I guarantee it.
Okay, well, so apart from being a great pilot and having balls of steel, what other attributes do you think you need to become a ferry pilot then?
Well, a number of things. Number one, you have to be self-reliant, especially on a solo trip like the one you're taking. You're not going to have anybody there to help you. And when I'm ferry flying, 99% of the time I'm by myself. So get into some bad weather at single pilot IFR, you're going to have to do it all yourself. Run into problems on the ground, figure it out yourself. I mean, these days you got a cell phone, so you have a support system, but maybe not. You're going to be dealing with that airport official who doesn't speak English, and you're going to have to figure it out. Maintenance problems, all on you. But that's one of the things I love about ferry flying. It's the challenge of it all. I mean, that's why you do it. If it was easy, it wouldn't be impressive. You wouldn't be proud of your accomplishments. So you're also going to have to learn how to react in challenging situations or emergencies, and how to think clearly and work through the problem. Even on a good day, you've still got challenging problems presented to you constantly, and you can't let your emotions get involved. I mean, I always tell people that I teach, if you've got time to panic, you've got time to do something more productive. So take
Yeah.
that to heart.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's great. You obviously crave excitement. It does sound really exciting. Really, well, I mean, the accomplishment of doing stuff like that, it must be amazing. I mean, I know you run a skydiving center, which some would say is the ultimate adrenaline sport. Is it fair to say that you're a bit of an adrenaline junkie, or is it, or better, what makes you tick?
Yeah, I've been doing so many crazy high risk activities for so long. I don't know if you really call it adrenaline anymore. Most just a lifestyle. I mean, if there's not a risk of me getting killed, it's not really all that interesting to me to a degree. So yeah, I guess you could say adrenaline junkie, but I just love getting myself into and out of challenging situations. I mean, I love in-flight emergencies. I love parachute malfunctions. I love stuff like that. You can't go seeking them out. That's cheating. They have to. Can't mispack your parachute and say, "Hey, I dealt with it." No, it's gotta surprise you. But that's why we train. That's why we practice. That's why pilots spend so much time reading about emergency situations and what to do's and what ifs, because anybody can fly on a nice sunny day. That's not a challenge. It's just when things happen, that's when the real pilots come out. And that's the stuff that makes you proud of your accomplishments. When you get back from a challenging flight, that's where you're going, yeah, that was cool.
Right. Well, can you tell me a little bit about you mentioned the parachute malfunction. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened with the parachute malfunction?
Sure. Probably the scariest one was me and my partner were with a student, a free fall student, and after the student left, we opened our parachutes up. And typically back then, this was about 25 years ago, we would fly our parachutes together, literally on purpose, ram them together and grab onto each other and basically just play in each other's parachutes.
Yeah.
Called canopy relative work. Well, this particular day, we hit each other just a little too hard, and his parachute wrapped around me. It's called wrap, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And his parachute, I had a line get wrapped around my neck and a parachute wrapped over my head. So suddenly I was being choked and blinded and having his whole body suspended by my neck as we spun violently.
Wow.
So that was kind of exciting. Managed to get the parachute off my face, hooked my fingers on the line to get some air into my throat. And he was looking down at me, waiting to tell me what to do. I told him, cut away. He cut away. I was able to get the parachute down off of me. My parachute was still working. And I was going to drag his malfunctioned parachute back to the center. And then it started spinning up and started wrapping around my foot. So I cut it loose into the corner and said, sorry about that. Saving myself. So just another day as an instructor.
just another day at the office then. Yeah. Yep. But I mean, that sounds terrifying. That sounds crazy for me. But I mean, also, I guess really exciting after you come down, you land safely, be like, what the hell was that? But yeah, no, I mean, I'm very much in awe of you, Kerry. And, one could only hope that, when needed, I have the knowledge and common sense that you have shown when you found yourself in difficult situations. But I'd like to talk to you about about my flight and ask you what advice you could give me prior to my around the world flight, and what you would say to any other person contemplating an around the world flight.
Sure. Number one, when you're doing flights like this, and really it's any flight, but especially when you're over the ocean, don't be in a hurry. I know you have a time limit and a time schedule that you want to stick to. It's one thing when you're flying over the US or Europe where there's an airport every 15 or 20 miles. It's definitely another thing when you're doing the ocean legs. You get to that point of no return, the equal time point. After that, you're committed. Right. And the two legs I see that you got there that you really want to be careful of are the Canada to Nook leg, and then the leg to Iceland.
Okay.
Because Greenland's weather can change real fast, and if a front will come in off the ocean and wipe out both Nook and their Saserac, and then you're kind of in trouble. So
Yeah.
make
Okay.
sure you pick good days for that. And I see you're not going up through the Caribbean. I think I would take the Caribbean islands, follow that chain up. That would be I love flying in the Caribbean. The Caribbean is freaking beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am flying around the world twice. The reason why I'm not going to the Caribbean on the first flight is actually because I have to, obviously for the record requirements, I need to be constantly traveling eastwards for the first around the world flight. Whereas, if I go to the Caribbean, I'll be traveling the opposite direction if I to come back. So that'll be for the second round the world flight. I might visit the Caribbean
Okay, cool.
another time, but my route has also been planned to avoid any long flights over the ocean. This also reduces the need for a ferry tank as well. Do you see any like other issues with my route?
Not really. Eastern Russia, 100. You're flying a piston, correct?
Yeah, piston.
Yeah, 100 low lead can be challenging to find there. So definitely want to make sure that the stops have it before you get there. I mean, sometimes they say they got 100 low lead and then they're out and they don't really advertise it. So definitely calling ahead. Make sure your visas are all in order. That changes a lot, especially in Russia. They got times consistent or problems with that once in a while. Other than that, it looks like an amazing trip. I flew around the world myself about 5 or 6 years ago, and I loved every minute of it. So you're gonna have a great time.
Great. Well, I mean, that's actually one thing I don't actually have to worry about is the 100 low lead. My aircraft it's a piston, but runs on jet fuel, actually, a diesel.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And it's certified for Russian jet fuel as well. So don't even have to worry about it there.
Then you got no problems.
Yeah, I've got about 1,000 nautical mile range on it as well, which is pretty incredible for a single engine piston. But without the actual flying experience, I can only try and learn as much as I can from people like yourself. What are the dangers that I should look out for then?
Besides the bureaucracy, weather and maintenance are your big ones. Weather you can mitigate by making sure you've got good days. You're not going to be able to wait for beautiful days every day because that's just not practical. You're going to have to fly in some clouds and rain.
Yep.
But you pick your days. Winds aloft are going to be an issue when you're over the ocean. And maintenance, keep good track of your engine instruments. What I always do on a long flight, as soon as I get the plane up to cruise, I take a video or a picture with my phone of the engine instruments. That way you can always refer back like, yep, it used to be 350 degrees and now it's 375. Something's changed.
Yep.
And that's your early warning system for your engine. Watch the engine instruments. They might give you a heads up to impending disaster.
Well, I mean, while I'm flying around the world, obviously the only entertainment I'll really have is looking out the window and looking at the engine instruments. So I will always be concentrated on the aircraft and the performance of it. But I mean, thanks for all the great advice. And I'd like to talk to you about your book now. My copy has only just arrived, so I haven't really finished it yet. But how did the book actually come about?
Well, I'd been kind of compiling these stories for the last 30 years or so. I mean, when I started ferry flying, I had an amazing story right on day one. And I've been kind of lucky or unlucky enough to have a lot of really crazy things happen to me and survive them. And so after every trip, I would come home and tell my friends and family. And after a while, they got sick of hearing them and say, you know what, why don't you just put them in a book and then we can read your book, or at least pretend we did or something. So I've been, writing them down for the last 10 years or so. And finally, during COVID, I actually got it all together, got a cover and published it. And it's gone fantastic. It's amazingly well. I can't believe the response. I would tell you what, publishing a book is scarier than flying over the ocean because you never know if you really write like a third grader or not. Yeah. I know my mom liked my stories, but you never know until strangers tell you that you're a good writer. So that's been kind of nice.
How's the book doing? And who do you want to play you in the movie?
Well, the book is doing really well. It's number 1 on Amazon in the commercial aviation category. And what was the other one? Pilot and instruction. bounces back and forth, number one, number two. I'm selling them just like crazy. I got over 600,000 pages read on Kindle Unlimited, so it's pretty
Wow.
amazing. And it's got to be Tom Cruise. He plays all the best aviators. I mean, he's a little old for me in the early days, but it'll work.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, Tom Cruise, that he loves aviation as well. So, Tom
Yep.
Cruise is perfect for that. And for those who haven't actually ordered their copy already, it's available on Amazon, or you can order a signed copy directly from Kerry.
Yep.
Do you want to tell them how to do that, Kerry?
Yep. They can either go to my website, which is kerrymccauley.com, or email me directly. It's kerrymccauley@hotmail.com, and signed and dedicated copy shipped right out to you.
Okay, Kerry, that's great. But I actually want to take a slight detour here, away from the subject of being a ferry pilot. As I said earlier, I only just got your book, so I haven't really read much of it. But I have read the back cover, which on the back it actually says, Kerry's almost insatiable, reckless quest for danger and adventure also led to putting international smuggler and bank robber on his resume. I mean, I imagine Barry Seal and the meddling cartel from the movie American Made. Can you tell me how you became an international smuggler and a bank robber?
Sure. Now you're going to get me to admit to breaking the law. No, that's okay. Yeah, basically, well, on my first trip, we had a little problem with the heater on the plane I was flying. And when I opened up the nose compartment to check on the heater, I found that it was completely stuffed with airplane parts. And when I asked my boss about it, he was a little evasive at first, but eventually I got the story that basically we were smuggling airplane parts into Europe to avoid customs. We didn't have I never smuggled any drugs, but on a number of trips, we would bring in airplane parts to avoid customs and duty, and basically made us smugglers. And there's a couple of transactions in there that were kind of shady, but not quite as illegal as drugs. So although I really could smuggle just about anything I wanted in these ferry tanks. I mean, they never check them. So, and as far as the bank robbing story, I'll boil it down to you, not to spoil too much, but basically I'd had my identity stolen, and a bank account opened up in my name in Spain. And I got a notice saying, "Hey, we see that you've got $50,000 in your account. Does that make sense to you?" I'm like, "No, not really, because I'm a poor, starving ferry pilot." And we talked with one of our customers over there, and they deduced that maybe there was some shady characters laundering money and hiding it from the Spanish government using my name. And then we turned out it was probably money that had been embezzled from my friend's company. So instead of going through normal legal channels, we pretty much went into the bank and pretended it was I who deposited the money and withdrew it, which was actually pretty scary because we had to go back a couple of times, and I thought we were going to get arrested for sure because it was an obvious forgery. It wasn't my signature. I didn't put the money in, but I took the money out. So technically, yeah, I robbed a bank there too. And I was reported to Interpol and had to flee the country in a jump seat of an airliner and not go through normal channels. So little things.
Wow, I mean, that sounds really exciting. So, I mean, obviously you didn't make, that much money really for your smuggling and robbing career.
No.
Well,
I wish.
So I was just planning my career out for the future. So, yeah. So I've actually been asking all the questions, Kerry. Are there any questions you'd like to ask me? Cool.
So why are you doing this crazy flight around the world? What inspired you?
Well, I've always been interested in flying. I love the views. I love being in control of the aircraft. I like the freedom as well. Being up there by myself and being able to look over the world. I find that amazing. But also, I really want to inspire people to follow their dreams, follow their goals, and motivate them to do the things they want to. But as well as that, I'm also a bit like you. I've gone skydiving before. I want to do it more, but obviously COVID, and I was a bit too young in this country until a few days ago. But I used to do motocross as well. I had stuff like you were saying that with your parachuting experience. it's like, you know, when I did motocross, I'd have like a bad crash and, you know, I should have hurt myself, but somehow I just walk away from it completely fine. You know, I used to find that, yeah, really fun, you know. So, but, you know, I really, I'm doing it for, you know, the excitement, the views, the experience, and to, you know, help other people, motivate other people to follow their goals.
Awesome. What's the exact record you're going for? What does it entail?
So, yeah, so the record is to become the youngest person to fly solo around the world in a single engine aircraft. So that obviously means no one else can fly me on any leg. And it has to be a, you know, single engine aircraft, yeah, a gross weight of at or less than 4,000 pounds, I'm pretty sure. And, you know, I was supposed to take off in April last year. Take off in June last year. But obviously coronavirus happened. So I'm now moving, and that would mean I beat the record by, you know, about a year, plenty of time. But now, you know, coronavirus happened. Now I'm planning to depart sometime in April, you know, mid to late April, which I'll still beat the record but only by about a month. That's not really an issue though. I only care about, you know, the flying experience and, you know, beating the record. It doesn't matter by how long. But, you know, that's essentially what the record entails.
Awesome. Well, good luck. I hope you make it and have a great trip. Sounds like fun.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Kerry. But one last question before you go. Can I visit you on my around the world flight and skydive with you at Skydive Twin Cities?
Oh, sure. That would be awesome. Just drop on in.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I won't drop in out of my aircraft, but yeah, no, I will. I'll definitely visit you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining me. And you know, I'll be keeping in touch.
All right, sounds good. Can't wait to see you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kerry. And thank you all for watching. That is the end of this week's show. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And if you want to know more about Kerry and his exciting adventures, go and buy his book. See you guys next week. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya.